This Todd-versation is brought to you in part by Calavo Growers, the family of fresh.
Hey there, everybody. How you doing? I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Ben's doing good. He told me he was when he came on the air and hang out with me today. So you got both of us doing good. We all hope you're doing good all over the world listening to us today. I'm excited about today's show. This is a very interesting topic and a very interesting group doing some big things out there that not a lot of people know about and not a lot of people are hip to. So I'm looking forward to sharing a little light and getting people involved and getting to think a little bit differently about what we actually do with our food, what are opportunities with our food, because this is a great topic. So please, everybody, put your hands together. Let's get a big clap out there in the world of the podcast channels, and welcome the co-founder and chief innovation officer, easy for me to say, of the Upcycled Food Association. Please, everybody, welcome Ben Gray. Welcome, brother. I'm glad you're here.
Thanks so much, Todd. I appreciate being here and appreciate the opportunity to hang out with your audience.
I appreciate it. Yeah, for sure, dude. I'm super stoked you're here because this is a really cool subject to talk about. And I think it's going to be neat for people to kind of get a little bit of a deep dive about what it actually means, what it's doing. But before we get into that, if you wouldn't mind, just give everybody a little 411, if you wouldn't mind, about who you are a little bit about your journey and bio, and then we'll dive into all this fun stuff.
Absolutely. So I'm kind of first and foremost just a lover of food. If gluttony wasn't a 7 deadly sin, I don't even know. I love food. And that's my background. At a high school, I went to culinary school, Johnson and Wales grad from Providence. Then it was clear I wanted to help people with food. And so nutrition was kind of the next stop for me, and had been doing nutrition education and nutrition communication for a good amount of time. Left a position and moved here to Denver, where I'm based, and got involved with some volunteer policy work and just the wonderful scene here in Denver with food systems. Did some volunteer work with an organization called Denver Food Rescue, who my co-founder, Turner Wyatt, who's our CEO, Upcycled Food Association CEO, was the executive director of Denver Food Rescue. He had an idea about a better solution for climate change and approaching climate change, and specifically a consumer-driven solution to climate change. So the story that we're going to be talking about today really developed from a hypothesis that Turner, myself, and our 10 founding members developed, that this could be an industry, that these companies could use support. And if we supported these companies doing this great work that we'll talk about, if we supported them in the right way, we would be able to really scale this solution to preventing food waste, to hopefully addressing climate change, and all curing all the world's ills, as it were. So
that's a big lift, brother. There's a lot of ills.
I'm a food person at the start. I love having interesting conversations with these fascinating people who are in our community, and that's a bit about me.
Love it. Dude, I love it. This is going to be great. I'm super pumped for this. But I want to bring up to everybody a little bit up to speed and what it is. And I'm going to start off by this. But, there's a report that was written in 2021 from the Food and Nutrition Sciences, and they said that 10% of consumers out there are hip to what upcycled food is. Only 10%. That's really surprising to me. But what was interesting in the report is that once people get educated, 80% of those folks said, I'm going to look for it now and make it a part of something that they shop for. And that's a very interesting statistic because it shows that connectivity, that emotional values play that this business brings and what you're talking about. And I, just briefly for folks, we're going to have you get us deeper into the conversation. But when you think about upcycled food, it's things like taking soy or oat or almond pulp that's used to make the milks and repurposing that to make these amazing flours that are, full of fiber and just kicking butt from a nutritional standpoint, or maybe cashews with the natural skin, things along those lines. But what's interesting, and we touched on a little bit earlier before we flipped the cameras on a chat, this business is got a $50 billion valuation, give or take, at that point, give or take $1 billion is nothing, right? But it's a big, big number about what this business is all about. So if you wouldn't mind with that kind of frame up a little bit, tell everybody what upcycled food means, and if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, it's this combination of something that we all think is probably the right thing to do, getting the best out of our resources,
Mhm.
and a totally new lens on the food system. Upcycled products are the same products or very similar products to what people are used to seeing on the grocery store or online when they're shopping for themselves. They use food that would otherwise have gone to waste, but we're diverting it, so we're making sure it continues in the system for people, and they're putting it into products for consumers. So you mentioned some examples. We like to talk also about like brewer's spent grain, the grain you've got after brewing.
Sure.
Oftentimes that tends to go to landfill, compost, possibly anaerobic digestion, right? And that's what we consider a waste destination. So what these companies are trying to do is divert it so it doesn't go there, but it actually stays. We can add value to it, stays within the system for people. We talk about the underutilized, but also the unseen, right? 70% of the cacao pod doesn't get used in chocolate production. We can do a lot of that. The fruit on the outside of the coffee bean oftentimes is a huge waste issue because it's quite acidic. We can do a lot of great things like turn it into flowers, turn it into bars. And, you know, like I said earlier, this is why the conversations are so interesting, because as someone who comes from a foods background, you're seeing people who are looking at their manufacturing, their supply chains, the food they're making, and they're just looking at it differently than others have by applying an age-old lens.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well said. I love that age-old lens. I love that, because I think when you think about food 200, 300, 500 years ago, there was no waste because there was no way to store waste. So they were figuring out ways to use everything that they possibly could. And this is exactly what this movement's about. It's like taking a step back through that lens, like how are we going to win the day and get the most value out of everything that we produce? I mean, how big of a problem? And I like to put this out to people because I think it's worthy of continually bringing up so people keep registering. Now, how big of a problem are you tackling when it comes about food waste?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to frame it, and it ends up being one of those problems that's almost so large it's hard to conceive of.
Yeah.
We hear numbers like between 30 and 40% of all the food grown for people doesn't actually get to people, right? So that's globally. And in each country, in each territory, it's lost or wasted in different places. What we know is that generally about 60% of that loss or waste happens before it gets to consumer, whether that's from the grocery store or from the restaurant. Before that happens, 60% is from farm to point of sale, right? So that's where we work. We don't work with food after it's been purchased by a consumer, whether that's in the restaurant or at the grocery store. If you want to look at it economically, it's generally cited as about $1 trillion of lost revenue each year globally. In the US, that's closer to 250 billion, which is a refed stat. Still a ton of economic productivity. We can break it down by category, right? We can look at vegetables, we can look at grains, but generally what we're looking at is just a lot of missed opportunity. And that has consequences. If food waste were a country, it would be the third largest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions behind the US and China. Food waste accounts for 30% of the arable land worldwide, and a similar percentage of drinkable water as well. So it's just, on the one side, it's a really large, almost inconceivable problem. And on the other side, it is just a massive opportunity for all of us to put on a different lens and what we already have, right? We hear a lot of people talking about how are we going to feed the 10 billion people that are projected soon on planet Earth. And one very, very helpful portion of that is just using what we're already producing.
For sure. Yeah. Figuring out what we have. I'll give you one that I throw out all the time because I think it helps people kind of get their head wrapped around food waste. Food waste in this country is the equivalent of every single American, big and small, old and young, throwing away 650 small to medium sized apples each. That's a lot of apples. Do the math, but you can't do that on your phone. You got to go sideways to get that number to go across. It's massive. It's a massive amount of throwaway apples. So talk a little bit at this point as we frame this up, as we kind of get into this, talk about what your impact's been so far with the association.
Thanks for joining the Todd-versation. And now, a word from our sponsor.
Hello, this is Jesse from Superior Fresh. Check us out at www.superiorfresh.com to learn more about how we raise our Atlantic salmon without the use of hormones, antibiotics, or pesticides. Our Heart Check certified salmon boast 2 times the omega-3s of other salmon and are fed an organic and non-GMO diet. Our fish thrive in water naturally filtered by our USDA certified organic greens, which allows us to recycle 99.9% of our water. This is salmon as it should be. Order Superior Fresh salmon direct to your home by shopping with us online. And listeners of this episode can use the discount code TLC15 to receive 15% off your order. We make it easy to get the best salmon in your homes and on your plates. We've got you covered. Superior salmon equals superior taste. Shop now and use code TLC15 for 15% off through the end of the month.
Yeah, there have been a lot of different ones. We're going to talk a lot about Upcycled certified as we go today, I'm sure.
Yep.
The amount of food that's been diverted as a result of the ingredients and products that are currently certified, an annual result is close to 1 billion pounds of food each year, right? So that's just the ones that are certified. That does not include all of those that are in the pipeline, and all those that are outside of our purview, which are many, many more, right?
Mm-hmm.
But from an impact standpoint, that's something that we track. That 1 billion pounds is a mark that we're very close to.
Wow.
We have built a network of companies that in the fall of 2019, when we were formed as the nonprofit trade association, we had 10 founding members. We are now at close to 230 organizations. They're members of our trade association that include brands, manufacturers, distributors, folks in the financial sector, academics, individuals, co-manufacturers, if I didn't say that, kind of the whole supply chain is represented there. As far as the certified ingredients and products, there's over 300 of those to date in a program that opened officially last June. And then finally, anecdotally, I was just at Expo East and before that at CHFA in Toronto about a month ago. And sorry that I've just dated our podcast. But at a time when a lot of the booths there may get intermittent traffic because that's what they are. We just get tons of people walking by and saying, oh, I need to know more about this. I've heard it. I don't quite understand it. That's what we're doing today, right? And we just get, there are not like more than 2 minutes of lull, no matter if we have 2 people or 5 people at our booth, where people come over and just are very interested because hopefully, as we'll demonstrate, it kind of just clicks. Like it makes sense. It's not a far reach. And I think, I think people, again, understand if you put that lens of this is what we should be doing and what we have always done in times of scarcity and otherwise, then it kind of clicks for folks.
Yeah, right. Well, I want to go back to something you talked about earlier, and it was talking about, ag land that really has food that never gets consumed. I mean, a number that I found, 28%. So it speaks exactly to the numbers you were throwing out, talking about. Can you talk a little bit from the farmer perspective about some of the things that you've heard back from some of these folks, about what you've come to them, right? How has your work really helped the farmer, and what kind of feedback you've gotten back from them? Because they have to be amazed.
Yeah. Farmers are obviously the backbone of what all of us are doing here in the food system. And so the certification in particular really helps to provide value to what they already know is an issue, right? There's a lot of reasons that food gets left in the field. There's demand, right? There's also, though, standards of identity and just the specs for a given piece of produce, right? So if you consider our hope, and if you consider what the spec is for a given piece of produce, let's say it's a lemon, right? And it's got a spec that says it can't be larger than this, right? It can't be smaller than this.
Right.
Graded, right? And you're gonna get a price premium based on the grading of what that lemon looks like. they're going to assume that a certain percentage of that harvest just is baked into their losses, and it's baked into how they're pricing things, right? But what if you could expand what is viable to market via spec or insect damage or weather or whatever we're talking about? What if you could expand that to find real value in what you have seen as a loss, right? So that consistent supply and hopefully widening the spec for food and widening the market for a given farmer is really important, and something that we really hope to do and expect. And there's also the opportunity for what we call very technically inconsistent supply, right? Maybe you had a weather event that you didn't expect, or a couple of years ago, all those fires really made a dent in the wine growing regions of California, smoky grape, right? What if you had a process to add value by saying these are certified, and that's a recognized attribute that consumers are looking for? All of a sudden, what was a loss is now very economical, and you have a reason to reap all those resources you just put in, right? Because we're talking water, we're talking fertilizer, we're talking time, we're talking labor, all these things. When you don't harvest those things, it's not just the greenhouse gas emissions from, say, landfilling. It is also all the resources you've poured into that 30% that's wasted, we talked about, that just go away, right? So when we cite a $1 trillion problem, it is not simply the value you get from purchasing food. It is everything that went into getting that apple, to use your analogy, in front of somebody.
Oh, 100%. And you make such a great point. I think people need to recognize, they don't recognize a crop failure when it happens because it's not in their grocery store. So to your point, that farmer's got the labor, the land, the water, the whole land. And let's be honest, he's got the bank calling too, saying, hey, oh, by the way, we expect something back too. And so it is a really big problem that we need to solve if we want to keep pushing the ball down the field. And to your point, to feed, the 10 billion people coming by 2050 plus aliens, because I'm sure they're coming too. But, I want to be clear for people, and I think it's important that we call this out, is that this is not a rotten food problem, right? This is all viable and valuable for human consumption, right? This isn't stuff that's leaking out of a box. It's not that. It is, to your point, it's imperfect. It's whatever a byproduct of pulp. It's just creative ideas to take food another step further. So with that being said, my next question to you, is there a stigma about upcycling food that needs to be cleared up to consumers, or something they need to kind of grasp?
Yeah, certainly that stigma you've described exists to a point. But I think another point we touched on already about awareness of the concept, in this case, is actually an advantage, right? We have so much room to do education in this area that, if you consider 10% of people have heard of upcycled food, that means that in this country, in Canada, by the way, it's about 15%. But that means you have the balance of that to teach exactly what we're talking about here, right? That once they understand that we're keeping it within the system for people. It never left. It's not like it's left and now we're bringing it back in. We're keeping it in there, right? So there is some stigma, and certainly in the first couple of years that we were in existence, especially the first year, every article that came out about the Upcycled Food Association, or 90% had a picture of a landfill as the picture going.
Not the best poster child.
No. Luckily, that has ceased. I appreciate that the journalists whom we love and owe a lot of our success to can understand that that's not what we're talking about. But that awareness piece is really an opportunity for us to tell the story, to ensure that stigma doesn't happen. And you identified one, but another one that is very important to call out, hopefully early in the conversation here, is the stigma of greenwashing, right?
Yeah.
That's something that we take very seriously. We understand that it's an opportunity to really make an impact that we have, and we don't take that lightly. And certainly it will never be good enough for everybody, but it needs to be salient. It needs to be rigorous when we're talking about things like a certification. There's got to be consumer trust. And when we look at writing requirements for the certification, when we look at communication around upcycled food, it's very important for us to do education so that folks can understand the rigor behind it. They can understand the nuances of a supply chain that might look slightly different than how they think food moves through our system. That's just another example of some of the stigma that is probably on the horizon, and rightly so. I don't ever want us to be preying on people's hope that we can actually make a difference. I want it to actually make a difference.
Yeah, well, yeah, 100%. You want to, it's a lot easier to say, look what I did versus look what I'm going to do, right? People, hopes are great, but action is what people want to see. And I think it's important. And I think with what you're doing, it's such a great action item that, every time you have those successes, I mean, it just keeps compounding and building in such a positive light. You set me up beautifully for this next question, and I'm ready to get into it. I'm going to give you a two-parter just because I think it fits together. First is tell us what the Upcycled Food Association is, but also tell us what your mission is, because I think that's really valuable.
So we are a nonprofit trade association. We represent over 225 companies that are all attempting to use food that would otherwise go to waste in ingredients and products or related to that mission, right? So the actual mission of the Upcycled Food Association is to prevent food waste by growing the upcycled food economy. We have three kind of pillar programs. We have a membership program, which helps to build the network of companies and helps them learn from each other, large and small, companies from startup level all the way to your Kroger's, your US Foods, your Dole packaged foods, right? Some really large companies, and everywhere in between. So helping to build that network, helping to build the supply chain. Some of those larger companies I just mentioned may be interested in bringing in brands, but also may be interested in, say, private label themselves. And so what we've done with the certification, which I'll talk about in a sec, is ensure that ingredients can also be certified. So it builds a toolkit for a company that wants to build make an upcycled product. So it's building the infrastructure, it's building the member network, it's attracting capital to the space. So that's another kind of pillar of what we do. And finally, our central and most public and consumer-facing initiative is the certification. So I told a bit about our origin story there. In the fall 2019, our first board-mandated activity was to create a certification, but one prime was, well, first we got to define this thing before we could actually put a certification together. So we brought together a host of experts, which included folks from the World Wildlife Fund, the Natural Resources Council, Harvard Food Law and Policy Clinic, ReFed, Drexel Food Lab, and a host of others who couldn't put their official name on this document at the end because they worked for government agencies here in the US and otherwise. And we defined upcycled food for government, academia, industry, and most importantly, the consumer. Right. I led that effort. I was a staff person on that effort to bring all those folks together. And then right after that, we used our definition as the basis for the certification, which we'll get into. So that certification comes from a background that includes academia, includes industry, includes nonprofits from that kind of basis. And then we use that basis, gathered another wonderful group of people together who have a variety of expertise to build the certification, which again is kind of our front-facing, most public and clear program that Upcycled Food Association does.
I love it. I mean, it's such a powerful mission and such a powerful journey you folks are on. And it's just so worthy of people's time to invest and better understand it, because the impact that you're having in a lot of ways isn't necessarily being seen. It's not front of face, but that impact that you're having out there in the marketplace is amazing. I guess, you'll see it in the flowers, you'll see it in the different things that are being produced, but I mean, it's the behind the scenes lift that you guys have done is absolutely amazing. I asked you a little bit about the farmers and what they were thinking. But I gotta come full circle and ask you too about some of the producers that are out there, right? Because all of a sudden you've got somebody that's doing this and you say, hey, but you can do this too. And it's like, whoa, this epiphany goes on. It's got to be very inspiring for some of these folks to get working with you and get those wheels turning together.
Yeah. And it's small to large and kind of everywhere, right? It's the whole supply chain, and it's our hope is it's the whole food system that starts using this lens and starts bringing Upcycled into their product lines. So from the producer perspective, we're getting plenty of traction. If you're a manufacturer, you are probably looking for a sustainability story. And this is one that really can connect, right? A customer doesn't have to make 2 or 3 leaps to understand what's going on. If we're doing our job right, then they understand, oh, this is something that was going to waste and is now here. It's no longer, and it's a wonderful, delicious product, that has checked all the food safety boxes and does everything that every other food on the market or beverage or product on the market needs to do. So from a producer standpoint, the sustainability messaging is really powerful. We're seeing adoption where grocery stores want to bring in more brands that have upcycled products. We're also seeing folks like IFF and other ingredient producers get involved and want to be able to service their customers, which are manufacturers, right? They're trying to put ingredients on the market. Another really great success story there is AB InBev, who has a subsidiary called Evergrain, and they're taking all of that grain in that St. Louis brewery, making picturesque Budweiser. And right next door, they're making upcycled ingredients, protein powders, fiber powders, things like that are all certified and can go into products, right? So we're seeing producers, we're seeing the folks, the ingredient suppliers, one back from the supply chain. Again, to go back to Expo East, I saw plenty of R&D people. I saw plenty of marketing folks, plenty of folks who have consultancies who work with brands to understand their consumers better and see the connection between Upcycled as a sustainability message and how it can be really impactful for the brands they're working with. And it's, it trickles back, right? It trickles back to the ingredient suppliers, which trickles back to the producers themselves. And so we're really seeing varying levels of traction throughout the supply chain and expect that to continue.
Oh, for sure. Well, look, there's no downside to what you all are doing, right? It's all get it upcycled. It's all up, and that's what I love. But tell me a little bit too. I mean, look, we're in an economy right now that's certainly not great. We're in an economy that's not going to get great, I don't think, for a while. It is what it is. So, I mean, that's got to put a little bit more pressure on farmers, producers to be thinking about ways. And how has the economy kind of affected people's mindset, or how your members see that right now?
Yeah, everyone's facing headwinds, whether it's the price of the inputs for production, or it's the price that you pay to transport your goods across. It's certainly
it's real,
and we're all feeling it in our own ways.
Yeah,
we talked about the additional revenue stream from the producer perspective, right? And so that's something that is really helpful in these times, is having additional revenue streams, especially if you consider you were taking a loss from the tipping fee earlier, and you can turn that into a revenue stream and maybe even have fewer tipping fees. And it allows for a diversified revenue stream as well. So
for sure.
Additional and diversified. If we're looking at, if I'm a farmer and I'm generally producing fresh produce, and now I have the option, it makes more economic sense because there's value seen in the marketplace to produce a canned good or an IQF good or a dried good for market, where that might have been going to landfill, compost, animal feed, depending on how expensive or not that is to get rid of it. Again, you've diversified your portfolio, which is super helpful in these times as well.
Yeah, 100%. No, great point. And I think it's really important that people, producers, and the food manufacturers that listen to us, the farmers that listen to us, take a step back and say, God, what am I doing? What are the opportunities? I think you guys really frame up, lack of a better word, a nice safety net for people to consider. And I think it's really important that we take a hard look. So let's get into the certification thing, because I think this is really, not only your work is so important, but this is your forward-facing message. This is what consumers now can start to look for. I mean, this is the flashing neon light on packaging and that messaging going forward. So what does Upcycled certification mean, if you wouldn't mind just kind of leaning into that a little bit, and talk maybe perhaps a little bit about what it takes for a producer, because it's just not fill out a form and you're good to go. There's the thought process behind it.
Yeah. We had many hours of really important, rigorous work done by experts who were all volunteers, by the way, and really there because they believed in this mission. If you consider that we had not been an organization for more than a year, we were technically a 7-month-old organization, and we were able to bring on 12 expert volunteers from 3 different countries, mostly from the US, but we did have a fun scheduling issue of Europe and New Zealand at the same time. So that's always great. And they were all volunteers and there to support this effort. Mm-hmm. It's not, I often like to say it's not because those of us who started the organization are such geniuses. It's the right thing at the right time, right? We're talking about a moment, and that's where the momentum comes from.
Absolutely.
And a need to change what we're doing and to get more value out of what we're producing. So Upcycled Certified is a certification mark that goes on pack in most cases, because in some cases we're talking about ingredients, and that's going to be more B2B.
Sure.
But it's a consumer-facing mark that tells consumers that this product includes a certain amount of ingredients that would have gone to waste, and now they're being diverted and ensure that they're going into products for people. So it includes food and beverage. Additionally, it includes supplements, cleaning products, cosmetics, and home care. And we also, we just rounded up our second round of discussions to iterate to make the standard stronger, and we're implementing that currently. And in that, we wanted to make a clear message to folks to folks who might enter the program that it's also viable for a restaurant menu item, right?
Yeah.
If you have, and we actually, US Foods has a bun currently that they have certified. And if you could enter a burger that has that bun, and if it met the qualifications, which I'll get into in a sec, you could put right next to that menu item the Upcycled certification, or you could talk about it within the menu description, right? You could signal there. So you asked kind of what are the high-level requirements? Well, the kind of main thing we have to do here is we have to prove that this was going to what we call a waste destination. So those include, not limited to, but include landfill, compost, anaerobic digestion, right? And you have to show that it was going there. And then you have to show through segregation that it's now going to this ingredient or this product that we're talking about. Right. For the ingredient level, 95% by weight of that ingredient must be from what we call upcycled inputs. It's got to have gone to waste. No, it's not. So to sell something as an ingredient, as a certified upcycled ingredient, it's got to be 95% or more upcycled material by weight. Mm-hmm. By the way, I'm sure I'll say it a couple times, but folks can go to our website, upcycledfood.org, and they can see the full list of certified ingredients and products right there. So it's public information. We would love for everyone to see just who's involved and what their ingredients and products are. Right. If we're talking about an upcycled certified product, there are a couple ways to get there. The easiest to understand is that 10% of the weight of that product has to be made from upcycled ingredients, similar to organic. If we're talking about a beverage or something else that has a lot of water, we're going to exclude the water weight there.
Sure.
And there's some nuancy stuff here that we'll get into. I'll try to do it as quick as I can. If you're using an ingredient, let's take an orange peel, right? And you want to use the flavoring from that orange peel. Maybe it's an oil. You can imagine that the amount that you would put into a product by weight for a flavoring or a coloring, pretty small, right? But the amount that you have diverted in that orange peel could be pretty large. If we've just juiced all of these oranges and now we've got all these peels, or done something else with the flesh. So we heard, I think rightly so, that it was important to reward or recognize all the diversion that's happening, regardless of how much that end product weighs, right? How much that ingredient weighs in the end. So there's an alternative path. If you can show that the product includes or is responsible for a certain amount of tonnage diverted, and it's anchored on your annual sales of that given product. So there's a tiered system there. You can show that it meets that minimum requirement for tonnage diverted, then that's also a pathway, right? And of course, we would love for folks to use multiple upcycled ingredients within one ingredient deck. So there are ways to get to that 10% or higher without considering the tonnage diverted, but it is an important piece, right? We want to make sure we want to celebrate all efforts. And actually, to that point, there's a secondary mark that says upcycled certified minimal content, which has some restrictions on how you can talk about the nature of those ingredients and has some marketing restrictions, but also allows anyone who's put in upcycled ingredients within their product. The core mark, the one that says upcycled certified, has those two, the 10% of the tonnage diverted, and those are the ones that are widely, like at 98% of all of the ingredients and products that are certified use that core mark.
I love it. What you've shared with people, and I think is so important that folks got to hear that, is that you tackle the issue of greenwashing and everything you just talked about. You literally have come to a place of being able to provide information back that tells consumers how they're contributing to the issue of food waste, how they're participating, how they're connected to this issue, right? Because people all want, I think we wake up every day trying to do good. I really honestly believe that. And when it comes to shopping, we just haven't really been taught how necessarily always to do good, right? It's just what's in front of us. It's what it's what we've been brought up. It's that culture, whatever it might be. And I think the way you have laid this out and the way that you guys have methodically thought this through, and I'm sure that some of those conversations early on, you made them sound like they were pretty good and warm and fuzzy, but I'm pretty sure they got, there were some conversations in there that were tough to be had because you are protecting the interest of the consumer along with the product. You're trying to do that heavy lift of changing the food world, but you also have to be able to ensure that confidence to the consumer. And I think that's something that you guys have done marvelously. And I think it's something that people need to recognize. It's one of the things that I took away from my time, looking into what you guys are doing and putting my energy into it, is I really found that to be uplifting to me, that it was really about that. It was really about this, guys, this is real. And let us tell you why it's real and why it won't be real and the parameters we have. I think it's just really cool, dude. I really do. I commend you guys for where you went.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Todd. And to be candid, and rightly so, we're going to be tested on this, right? It's always a conversation. There's always a balance. And as the main staff member kind of crafting those conversations, it's a hard place to be when the solution is probably something that no one is happy with, but people can generally get behind wherever you are on that argument. I want to point out also as a consumer education tool that a requirement of labeling of Upcycled certified is that you specifically call out which ingredients within that product are actually the upcycled ingredients, right? That's a requirement. It's got to be either in the ingredient deck or even ladder on front of pack. You just have to talk about it so that consumers can actually say, oh, this is how I'm doing it, right? Maybe we don't know exactly where that beet powder came from, what farm it came from, but we know in this product I'm looking at here, it is the beet powder that is doing the lifting here on the certification.
Thanks for joining the Todd-versation. And now, a word from our sponsor.
Hello, this is Jesse from Superior Fresh. Check us out at www.superiorfresh.com to learn more about how we raise our Atlantic salmon without the use of hormones, antibiotics, or pesticides. Our Heart Check certified salmon boast 2 times the omega-3s of other salmon and are fed an organic and non-GMO diet. Our fish thrive in water naturally filtered by our USDA certified organic greens, which allows us to recycle 99.9% of our water. This is salmon as it should be. Order Superior Fresh salmon direct to your home by shopping with us online. And listeners of this episode can use the discount code TLC15 to receive 15% off your order. We make it easy to get the best salmon in your homes and on your plates. We've got you covered. Superior salmon equals superior taste. Shop now and use code TLC15 for 15% off through the end of the month.
Well, I think it's incredibly important to do that, because look, we have a lot of words out there in the marketplace when it comes to food, like sustainable. No clue what that actually means. Local, define it. 100 miles, 1,000 miles. Hey, if it's February and you're in Western New York and there's snow on the ground, you want to eat have a salad? Not local anymore, right? It can be getting close to being local nowadays with technology, but who knows? So I think it's really important that you give the consumer the backbone that you're giving them. And that's what I love about what you guys are doing, which is why I was really pushed, and our mutual friend, one of my favorite people on the planet, Joe Dixon, said, you got to get these guys on. You need to talk to them. And once I got into it, I was like, yeah, you're right. We got to get these guys on and talk to them, because you really do represent the values that I feel are incredibly important, and to give consumers that opportunity to to contribute and to get involved in making a difference in this planet with their dollars. And that's a powerful tool we have to embrace. It's just great work, dude. It really is.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Todd. And I'm not saying that as a lead-in. I really truly appreciate it. I also, I want to speak to consumer trust generally, and I'm sure I would expect this is something that you understand from your time in the industry as well. And as you've said, people wake up and they want to do good. Companies, large food companies, are certainly not a monolith. Like when we talk about these hard conversations, those similar conversations about sustainability and what's good for the consumer and what helps gain consumer trust, those are happening internally in the given organization just as much as they're happening within our organization for certification requirements. And I think it's important for people to understand that certainly there are people within large companies, whether they're food companies or otherwise, that have only profit on their mind. And there are many, many people at those same companies who have the triple bottom line on their mind and take it very seriously and want to ensure that is elevated in their conversation. And so this, hopefully gets to a place where we can get all of those archetypes within a company on board to putting all of our food to its best and highest use.
Love it, brother. So people can go online, upcycledfood.org. They can see what's certified, what's out there, right? And then they can get involved off the website, right? They can learn about the foundation, can learn about the work that you're doing. They can get contact information for these brands that are listening, like, I've got to make that email. So all that lays there. I mean, it go on the Google machine, hit the URL, and it's, let's walk that path together and see what we can create from all this.
Yeah, we have membership levels all the way from student to multinational company, right? So people get involved as members. We have tools to attract investment to the industry. So if you're someone who's looking to invest financially in this industry, we have connections for that. We, like I said, are a nonprofit. We are actually 2 nonprofits, technically. We're a 501c6 and a 501c3. That's the Upcycled Food Foundation, is the 501c3. And, we certainly benefit from philanthropists who are interested in investing in this as a solution to climate change, and welcome that. And it's not new. We've been able to partner with the generous folks at the Kroger Zero Hunger Zero Waste Foundation, who have given us some generous backing. The Fink Family Foundation was our initial funder back in the fall of 2019. So we have a ton of appreciation for them. And there are many people I should be thanking right now who I will choose to do at another time. But there's lots of ways to get involved.
Right.
And hopefully we've done something here. Appreciate the platform to
for sure. Well, that's the basis for the statement and the question, because I think it's incredibly important that people recognize that at any level they can get involved and they can make a difference. And again, they can contribute. This is an opportunity to contribute and to vote with your dollars and be a part of something that's making a huge difference, that needs to be at a $50 billion plus valuation and go up to 100 billion and build this business, because there's a ton of opportunity out there. 650 apples is a hell of a lot of apples for everybody in this country to throw away a year. It really is. It's a lot. Go to the grocery store and count how many apples are on the shelf. You'll be lucky if you see 650, right? It's a big number. So tell me, what's next for you guys? What's exciting coming up in 2023? You got anything, big announcements? What's going on? Give me a tidbit, bro.
I'm going to tell you every announcement that we have for next year.
Go, baby, go.
So we have, like I said, almost 300 ingredients and products that are currently certified. That represents somewhere around 46 or 47 participating brands in the program, and we have somewhere around 130 brands in the pipeline. So if you do some quick back of the envelope math, generally that's at least 500 products. 500 ingredients in products, and those are only the ones that we know of in our pipeline. There are plenty more in our membership, and by the way, it is not a requirement of certification that a company be a member of Upcycled Food Association, and vice versa. We have plenty of brands with upcycled products that are certified that they're not members. We would love them to become members, but
sure,
not always the case. This year, actually, as I've mentioned, we went through and looked at the standard and made sure, that it was purpose built. After having run the program for a bit of time, we went back in and made sure it's good. So we're currently implementing version 2 of the standard. It's out there and people are using it right now. So we're expecting more ingredients and products. We expect more wonderful partnerships. We get a lot of incoming interest and demand for the certification from places outside the US and Canada. We actually started in the US last year, opened in Canada on Earth Day this year, and expect to be moving outside of the US and Canada next year. There's a lot that goes, we're hoping that's a goal. It's hopefully not even a stretch goal, but a goal that we're going to get to for next year. And generally, we're hoping to see those consumer awareness numbers go up, and we can do that only with, all the giants that we stand on the shoulders of, all the people who are looking at their own manufacturing, or not even what they currently do, but they're consumers who see a problem and they're creating brands themselves. We have plenty of those stories, brands themselves because they're seeing value where others aren't doing the analysis themselves. So. There's the Expo East experience that I had always gives me some really wonderful feels, right? Every time we do an event, we have this lovely community of member companies, and they truly care, and they're also pumped to move forward. So we're hoping the organization grows. We're hoping that the certification, we expect the certification to grow in the number of ingredients and products. And ultimately, we expect the folks looking at this to see more of those products on shelf. We already Upcycled certified products are nationally circulated in Whole Foods, in Sprouts, in Kroger stores, Target online, many other places, which represents, if you put those together, represents a large number of the storefronts in the country. And so hopefully we see more of those come on, and we see a lot more products on the shelves.
I love it, brother. I'm just so proud of the work you guys do and the lift that you're doing and the opportunity to get you out here and get some more people to see what it is and hear what it is and be a part of what it is, because it's a noble mission. We need it. We need you out there. We need you to keep growing. We need 5,000 brands. So there's my goal for you. Good luck. Have fun. I'm sure that'll make you go nuts trying to get that pulled off. But hey, you got the energy. You can do it. But I do. I really appreciate what you're doing, and I mean that in all sincerity, because I think that it's the time is now for us to start to really focus in and make some changes. And having spent some time recording another broadcast I shared with you before we flipped the camera on today, I spent some time with some teenagers that were talking about a product that they're making and doing different stuff. And when you listen to the youth of today and what concerns them and what worries them and what they're thinking about, we need to do more of that, right? We need to go downstream and listen a little bit. Right. And this is a big part of what they're concerned about, is what we're leaving them for this planet, and the changes that we can make, and where we're going to do with water, and how they're going to feed their kids. I mean, these are things these guys are thinking about today. So to have you guys doing what you're doing and being out there and elevate this message, really awesome, dude. It really is. It's super, super cool.
Yeah. I'll say it again. I appreciate you elevating the voice. Those of you who are listening, come on board and join the community.
Absolutely. Dude, come back. I'd like for you to come back next year. Let's talk about where you are and how many brands are out there. I'd like to keep this conversation going. So this platform I'm extending to you at any time to come on and keep it going, because I believe in what you're doing. I think it's really cool, and we need to keep people involved. And again, go vote with your dollars. This is that opportunity to contribute to make a better planet. And I think we all owe it to each other on this global community to act like we're all on the global community together. And you guys are leading the charge on that. And I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Todd.
Yeah, dude, for sure. Everybody, thanks for listening. We appreciate you being here. Go check us out on social media, TLC_Todd-versation. We hang out there because the Kardashians do, so that's why I'm on there. We appreciate you listening. Like I always say, go inspire somebody. It's really important. What Ben talked about today is important. It's inspirational. We have that opportunity, and we need to lean into it. So go do it. Be inspirational today. Go look up online, find some upcycled food, share it with your family, and tell them the story about what it is. And let's hook some more consumers about this. It's not hard to do, guys. He's doing the heavy lifting. You can go do your part now, too. Let's make it happen. Ben, I appreciate you. Come back anytime. You're always welcome here. Keep up the mission, brother. I'll talk at you soon. Take care, everybody. Be good.